Hey guys, Steve from Top Guns, and today I have with me
Jennifer.
Jennifer and I are going to take a few minutes to kind of describe and explain how a 4473 works, what some of the different sections are and what they mean, and hopefully clarify some of the issues that we see in the store. And we have to be careful that we're not crossing any lines legally as to what ATF allows us to say or not say. So we're going to kind of be as careful as we can, and we want to actually preface this by saying we're not attorneys. This is not the end-all answer, so double check us, make sure what we're telling you correct, but this is what we're saying is this is the best of our understanding as it is today. This could obviously change in the future, so as of today, this is our best understanding of the 4473. So Jennifer is kind of our, although we are not experts, we will say Jennifer's our resident expert on 4473. So she's going to kind of help go through at least the top section and tell us what to look for, what to watch out for, and help us understand some of the common mistakes that we see in a gun shop. Do you want to go ahead and starting?
The first line is just last name, first name, middle name, just like any other thing that you have to fill out. If you do have a full middle name, you have to use that. It can't just be the initial, unfortunately. We do see that one a lot.
What about cadence?
And cadence, also, after your last name. If you're a junior, the second, the third, it's going to be right after your last name on the form. If you are a second, third, or junior, it has to be on your form.
So that would be under number 1 where their last name is, they would put that after them.
Yes.
Okay.
Current resident address is part of number 2. It has to be your legal address. We do have to have something that proves that you live there. So a lot of times we do see unmatching addresses, and that's a big issue.
Okay.
Place of birth, U.S. city and state, or foreign country.
Now, yep, go ahead.
Height, weight, gender, birth date. It's pretty basic on that one. Social security number is on the form, but it is also optional. You don't have to put your social security number if you're not willing to. They do say it's all or nothing, though. You can't just put your last 4. So that's part of it that you have to look at, too. Question number 10, a lot of people miss, has 2 separate parts to it. They are asking for your ethnicity and your race. So you have to answer if you're a Hispanic or Latino or not Hispanic or Latino, and then select Black or African American, white, Asian, as well. And then goes into question number 11, which I will let Steve go ahead and discuss.
So I'm gonna explain question 11, which has several parts here. But a few mistakes that we see up top is often people will skip 10A, which is a separate question than 10B. So you want to make sure that you do answer both 10A and 10B when you're filling out your 4473. Also, another common thing that we see is where it says county here, we'll often see people put USA there, and because they just read it quickly and they see the word country. So that actually says county. You want to just be cognizant that that is asking for your county, not your country, and that'll certainly help out your local gun store when you're help them from having any issues with 4473s when ATF comes to inspect them. So that should hopefully kind of explain the top section. She mentioned a valid address with matching ID. So let's talk about that for just a minute. When you go into a shop and you fill out your 4473, you do need to have a valid ID that has a matching address to the address that you are filling out as your legal address. So if by chance your driver's license does not match that, let's talk about some of the other alternatives they could have to bring with them so that they're coming in prepared. So
one of the most common that we see is actually a vehicle registration, because if you show up in a car, you're probably going to have it in your glove box or maybe your center console.
Gun permits,
hunting, fishing licenses.
So I know here in our particular community, we have our city sewage bill is municipally owned, and so when that comes from the city sewage department, because it's coming from a government entity, then that is also acceptable. The alternate IDs do have to be government issued or government sent. So and other options would be, sometimes a pay stub if you work for a federal agency, for instance, the prison system, or perhaps local sheriff's department, wherever you live. Also,
State accredited colleges.
state accredited colleges. So if you go to, we have ISU here, so if a person goes to Indiana State University and they've received mail from Indiana State University, which is considered a state accredited entity, and I did verify this through ATF and got an email back, so saying that those letters would be acceptable as long as they are addressed to you at your address. So there are certainly lots of options out there. Utility bills typically are not acceptable unless they are municipally owned. So keep that in mind. We're going to talk a little bit about section 11, or question 11, and it has several parts here. You know, one thing we don't want to do is we don't want to cross the line of coaching you on how to answer this. So what we will say is be sure to read these very carefully and make sure you understand the question and read it in full. Some of the common errors that we see is up where on 11A, where ask if you are the actual buyer. And sometimes if a person's buying a gift, they're not sure if they're allowed to answer that with a yes. And so I would tell you, read section 11A on the in the instructions. And you are, in fact, allowed to buy a gift. That is not illegal. But it has to be a bona fide legitimate gift. It can't be that so-and-so can't fill out the paperwork, so I'm going to fill it out for them, or something of that nature. It has to be that you legitimately are buying so-and-so a gift, whether it's for their birthday or Christmas or whatever, just because you're a nice person perhaps, but it does have to be a gift. Another issue that we see is sometimes people don't understand some of the terminology used in here. One of the ones I've noticed is adjudicated. We hear a lot of people ask what the term adjudicated is. Other ones that I have, can you think of any others? Renounced. Yeah. It asks if you've renounced your U.S. citizenship. So renounced is another one that we have a lot of people come up and ask, hey, I'm not sure what this means. And so again, there are descriptions in the back. They don't necessarily describe what the vocabulary means. And my understanding is the shop is allowed to tell you, or perhaps even give you access to a dictionary where you could read the definition if you needed to. But basically, it's asking you if you've given up if you've renounced your citizenship. It's asking you if you have given up your rights as a citizen in the United States. Another one that it asks is if you've been adjudicated mentally defective, and basically it's asking if the courts have deemed to find you to be have any type of mental issues. And so obviously we would not know that answer. You would only know that answer, and it's very important that you do answer these honestly, and don't just go into a store and attempt to try to get a gun and so you answer it the way you think you should answer it. It is important that you answer it correctly and be as truthful as possible. And that's for a few reasons. One is obviously you could be charged with a crime if you're not being forthcoming and honest on it. And obviously if we have knowledge, we could also be charged with a crime. So as a gun shop, we are not going to let someone slide through. It's not worth risking our license on. And as the person filling out the paper, we would hope that you wouldn't even put us in that position or put your local gun shop in that position as well. You get down to number 13. Actually, let's talk about question number 12. Question 12 is one that people frequently misunderstand. And basically what question 12 says is it is a follow-up saying that it doesn't apply to everybody. So when you get to question 12, be sure and read it, because there's a good chance that you may not have to answer that question. And if you do answer it, then we ask you to cross it out and sign and initial it. But question 12 down here, which is a yes or no answer, that one has the potential to be left blank. So we would encourage you to read that question entirely prior to answering it. 13A, or rather 13, you want to just kind of describe what's going on down here?
13 asks basically, where do you live? It's asking what your state of residency is. So, and then 14 is just your country of citizenship. A lot of times question number 15 is applied to 11L and question number 12 also. So.
but most frequently will be more than likely left blank if you are a U.S. citizen, and then that particular section would not apply to you.
Yes.
As we turn the page, we're going to get to the end of the portion that you would fill out. And you want to just describe what they need to do up here?
Yep. It's really important that the signer actually reads the paragraph at the top. It's basically just verifying that you've answered everything you filled out to the best of your knowledge, and it's all accurate information. And 16 and 17, you're just going to sign and date, and it's really important that that's where you stop, because question number 18 is where it starts section B, and that's where the store that you're filling it out in is going to start filling it out.
So, in fact, if you want to just keep going, because you know more about this section than I do.
What we start to fill out is the type of firearm you're purchasing, which basically just tells the ATF what kind of check to run on you. If you're under the age of 18, you can't purchase anything. Under the age of 21, you can't purchase a handgun or what's considered an other, which would be something such as a lower receiver or a pistol grip shotgun. And then we fill in your driver's license information, and at that point we run the background check, and you're all good to go usually.
Okay, so sometimes some people will get a delay, and that's nothing to be overly concerned about. It could be due to a lot of different things. It could be that maybe ATF or FBI on the background check portion is just backed up, and they're backlogged, and it's going to take them some time to catch up. So that's
do that a lot.
So that's sometimes what's going on. Other times it could be that someone has a similar name to yours, and so they need to just make sure that that they've got the right person, and that they're getting ready to let the person that they think is getting the gun, making sure that it's the right person in question.
Which that also ties into your social security number and whether you put it on the form or not.
That can sometimes help speed it up. And, it helps them identify that they've got the right person. So as we move down, down here, this is just an area that we would do a follow-up if you had a delay, where we would have you re-sign and date when you come back on a follow-up date, or in some states where you have a waiting period, then you would have to come back and sign and date that down there regardless. As we turn the page, this is the area that we fill out what you're buying exactly, along with serial numbers, and then we're going to put the number of products that you're purchasing, so whether it's 2 guns or 3 guns, and then we fill out the rest of our information here. You know, one of the questions we often get is, does the ATF or the FBI have a record of what you're buying? And I can't speak for all states, but I can speak for Indiana. Here in the state of Indiana, when we run a background check, we run the check and they ask us this question: what type of firearm? And we either say handgun, long gun, or other, or we may say handgun and long gun, or handgun and long gun and other. So we just give them the combination. But what we don't tell them is what you're actually taking out. So as a result, it may be the case that you purchased 100 weapons on that one 4473. So, you know, here in the state of Indiana, we're a non-registering state, so there is no record that ATF or FBI is keeping track of. We do not send a copy of any of that in. The only thing that they really have access to is to know that we did run a background check on you, and quite frankly, they don't even know that you took a firearm out of the store that day, because it could have been the case that we ran your background check and we got up to the register and you didn't have enough money on you and you decided not to buy it, or your spouse decided they didn't want you to have it, or something of that nature. So there's no guarantee that you even took a firearm out of the store that day. Could they track it if they needed to? Yes. So what could happen is, if a firearm was used in a crime and they needed to know who that firearm went back to, then it would not be the case that they could just run it, the serial number, and see who owns it, because if it's not in a state that has registered firearms, they're not going to know that answer. However, what they could do is they could call the manufacturer. The manufacturer could say, I sold it to distributor XYZ. That distributor could then say, well, I sold it to dealer ABC. And then that dealer would then say, yeah, I sold it to John Doe. And so then they could go to John Doe and say, hey, do you have this firearm? Now, in the state of Indiana, as I mentioned, currently there's no registration and there's no law that regulates individual to individual sales. So for the state of Indiana, which is probably going to be different than most of your states, for the state of Indiana, John Doe could have sold it at a gun show, or he could have sold it on the street or wherever he chose to sell it, and may not even have any record of that. I would tell you, if I have a firearm that I bought from a gun shop that is specifically trackable or traceable back to my name, I'm gonna make sure that I have evidence showing that this weapon has been transferred to someone else and cover myself. A lot of people will even take that weapon into a gun shop and say, hey, will you transfer this for me? Just so that they feel a little more comfortable. That way, if somebody comes back and they say, hey, no, I took it to the store down the road and they did a background check on this guy, so I know that he was legal. So that's also an option, and often stores will charge a minimal fee to do to log it in and log it out and do what's called a transfer. Hope this has been helpful on 4473s. Don't hesitate to post your questions down below. Again, I want to reemphasize that we are not experts in this field. This is as it stands today to the best of our understanding, but we are not attorneys. This is just the way we understand it, and any legal questions should be directed directly to the ATF. Thanks again for watching. Take care.